Welcome to lesson 1.2, what stress really is and why it hijacks thinking. As a leader, you've likely been told that stress is just part of the job, that it's something to tolerate, to push through, or manage when you have time. But what if we started treating stress not just as an annoyance, but as a biological system with clear, predictable consequences? In this session, I'll walk you through the actual mechanics of stress, what it is, how it's triggered, and why it interrupts your best thinking without taking away your intelligence. This isn't just neuroscience trivia, it's a framework for understanding how to lead with clarity, even in pressure heavy environments. Stress is not a feeling, it's a system. Specifically, it's your survival response system, originally designed to keep humans alive during moments of immediate threat, predators, physical danger, environmental risk. When you encounter something your brain interprets as a threat, and this is key, even if it's not actually dangerous, your nervous system kicks off a sequence called the sympathetic activation response. What happens? Well, your heart rate increases, breathing accelerates, blood is redirected to your limb, and your body prepares to run or fight. The system has a name you've heard before: fight, flight, or freeze. And here's the thing. It works exactly the same way whether you're facing a bear or an executive board presentation. Here's where things get really interesting. When stress activates your body, it also alters your brain, specifically by increasing activity in the amygdala, the emotional and threat processing region. The amygdala sends a high priority signal to your nervous system like, handle this now. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thought, executive function, strategic planning, and self-regulation, that part goes completely offline. This system is called the amygdala hijack. You don't become stupid, you don't lose skill, you lose access to the part of your brain that organizes and applies that skill effectively. For executives and high performers, this is particularly dangerous because you're often making decisions that affect teams, strategy, client outcomes, and brand reputation. And if you're operating from a stress hijacked state, you're likely to make overly fast and overly cautious decisions, overcorrect or micromanage, and completely miss nuance. Also, you can react emotionally, but then rationalize it logically. And the kicker, you feel absolutely sure that what you're doing in the moment is correct. Stress gives you the illusion of certainty while degrading your cognitive performance. That's a trap. Think back to a time when you got into a heated disagreement or made a decision under tight pressure. At the time, you may have felt certain you were doing the right thing, but in hindsight, with a little space, you realize you were missing key context or that your tone escalated the situation unnecessarily. This is a result of the threat response masking as clarity, and it's common in leaders who are otherwise composed and strategic because the stress response doesn't care about professionalism. It only cares about short-term threat resolution. Now, not all stress is bad. There's a performance principle out there known as the Yerkes-Dodson law, which shows that a moderate level of arousal or pressure can actually improve performance. You've probably felt this before. A tight deadline sharpens your focus. A high-stake presentation brings out your best prep. But there's a tipping point. Too much pressure can lead to mental fatigue, narrowing attention, rigid thinking, poor listening. The key here is to learn where that inflection point is for you and how to regulate before you cross it. Many leaders pride themselves on being, quote, good under pressure. And that's valuable, but up to a point. And here's the distinction. Being good under pressure doesn't mean operating in constant pressure. True stress resilience isn't about tolerating more stress. It's about becoming better at regulating stress and then recovering from it. Otherwise, you don't become more effective. You just become more exhausted. And exhausted leaders make worse decisions, even if they look composed from the outside. So before we close, here's one more important distinction: stress versus anxiety. Stress is your body's response to a demand. It's generally situational. Anxiety is a narrative. It's your mind trying to predict and prepare for something that hasn't happened yet. Both can activate the same biological systems, but stress usually ends when the event ends. Anxiety loops unless you learn to intercept the story. Why does this matter? Because high performers often confuse the two, trying to solve anxiety with action, when what's really needed is awareness and reset. So let's pause here and reflect. Think about your last high pressure situation. What triggered your stress response? What were the first physical signs? And how did it affect your decision making or your tone? The better you know your early warning signals, the more control you'll have in the moment. In our next lesson, we'll explore why high performers, the people most trusted to handle stress, often feel it most intensely, and why that's not a flaw, but a sign of load, visibility, and expectation. I'll see you there.